Hey there coworkers, it's Hazmy here, and in today's video I'll talk about some more insights and more tips on how to get better at Salmon Run and win more of your shifts reliably, especially if you mostly play freelance. Freelance Salmon Run is a beast of its own, and I know how hard it can be to sometimes carry your games or just get by and not lose in wave 1 due to silly errors or teammates not cooperating with you. But the good news is that there are some ways to minimize risk and win most of your freelance shifts, and they are pretty easy to get used to doing yourselves. Before we start, there are additional guides on the channel that would also help you improve at Salmon Run, so if that's something you're interested in, make sure to check out more videos and also subscribe for new releases in the future. Now let's see those tips. Tip number 1, survival. Duh, I know, just don't get splatted, just stay alive, get good, etc. We have all heard these before, but without any useful information or practical advice on how to actually do that or get better at survival. The reason this tip is usually the one that is recommended is because in freelance you don't have control over your team or what they do. The only thing you have control over is your own gameplay and your own ability to stay alive through all the waves, and I always say the trick to playing freelance is playing like your team always needs you. If you play risky or you make foolhardy decisions that require your teammates to help you, each time you risk throwing your own match. It's like rolling the dice and hoping you get a favorable result, and that's not something you can afford if playing freelance really. The moment you change your mindset that you cannot allow yourself to get splatted, or that you have to prioritize certain bosses because the others won't, and that you need to keep reviving your coworkers all the time, your playstyle will drastically change and you'll slowly notice and learn your own routine to help you achieve these goals. With that said, your coworkers will often get splatted though, and you will need to act quickly to get them back on their feet, as splats are a huge waste of time and often are the main reason for failing to meet your quota, yet I still barely see people reviving each other efficiently. Splat bombs are something everyone has access to, and while they are a bit ink hungry, they're your best tool to revive your allies no matter where you are. Bombs can be thrown at a very large distance with good technique and momentum, and they also have excellent blast radius that makes them vital in the kit of an experienced worker. Whenever I hear a coworker splat or ask for help, I keep seeing players give up their good position, run to the other end of the stage, jump down to the shore among a whole horde of salmonists to try and help, only to get splatted themselves and make the situation worse, when the only thing you would have to do is throw a splat bomb instead, especially since on every map you can basically throw anywhere on the stage if you're near the basket, and help anyone who needs it. So start practicing revives with splat bombs. Unfortunately, the other end of the spectrum also happens a lot, and it makes me sad that on numerous occasions, coworkers remain completely idle when splatted and refuse to move, press the help button and advance towards a more favorable location to help their team revive them faster. And this happens most of the time with shore rushers, which is the worst combination of all since you are so far away. When you're splatted, please press the help button at least once and start moving towards the basket for a more favorable low ground where splat bombs can easily reach you. Don't just stand on top of a platform or near the shore just because there are eggs nearby. There's nothing you can do, and likely your allies are also busy. You just have to leave those eggs and move towards the basket instead. Tip number 2, training dummies. I know this one sounds trivial as heck, but listen. Even now, one of the biggest mistakes in freelance that I see is that people have no idea how to play certain weapons they're using, and they keep overestimating or underestimating their power. This is also one of the reasons I keep posting my salmon reports that summarize some quick tips for weapons every rotation, because knowing just 1 or 2 tips on what your weapon is good at is a game changer already. Every rotation in Grisco Lobby you can walk up to the weapons chest and choose any of the weapons available during the rotation to practice within the room or against the target dummies that are present. More importantly, those target dummies actually represent salmonids in the game, from small fries, chums and cohocks, but even bosses that a lot of players don't know. When you look at these balloons, you will find stickers of bosses on them that shows which salmonid they represent, and so they share the same HP pool that you can test your weapon against. For example, this balloon on the top left represents steelheads, and not only does it have the same HP as a steelhead bomb, but it's also the same height, so you can test if your weapon can reach it reliably or not. The balloon in the back represents various other bosses and will also help you see how fast you can potentially splat them, so that you can judge your ink efficiency or your splat time to not stay long in the area. Before going into a shift, try out every single weapon and test how they fare against all of these targets. Again, it might seem trivial, but it really isn't, and in fact, it's one of the most important practices I still do before every shift, as it burns into your muscle memory and helps you in your decision making when there really isn't time to wonder if your weapon can do something or not. This is connected, for example, to the splatlings tip I keep saying, that by learning how much you have to charge your splatlings for each of these target dummies, you save yourself so much time during the game, but also help you be more mobile and versatile instead of constantly overcharging or undercharging that causes you a bunch of trouble. For weapons that are bad at ink efficiency, this is also the best time to practice how often you should be refilling your ink tank, or what's the best method to paint with them while also keeping your ink tank full. This applies mostly to blasters and sloshers, and I found it's always good to keep a number of shots in your mind after which you should start refilling. Now we arrive at tip number 3, the final tip, which is don't rush shores. People just love shore rushing. It's like Boxing Day on Christmas. A steelhead or a scrapper shows up at the end of the shore, and 3 coworkers immediately rush to splat them and throw a barbecue party at the same time. Now, I'm not saying going to the shore is always bad, but in Freelance, I would say 90% of the time it is. And it is a horrible habit people have that I believe they just do out of getting used to it. But if you want to get better, this is one of the main things you have to stop doing. I'm not just talking about rushing to the shores instead of luring, but also actively staying on the shore for long periods of time. So yes, first, each time you split the boss on the shore, you are potentially risking not being able to take all those eggs back to the basket because of lack of time or being overrun by other salmonids, whereas if you just stayed back, you could have splatted them much closer, right? But this isn't just about luring and eggs, it's far worse than that, and it's about altering salmonid paths. One of the main reasons someone might be on the shore is the presence of static bosses, most likely a stinger, but especially big shots. And the natural reaction is after you split them, you want to get all those sweet eggs, right? But instead, I'm going to tell you, if there are salmonids near you, especially new ones spawning, forget about the eggs and get back to the basket as soon as possible. Big shot cannons can often be a dangerous trap and trick you into staying longer and letting you believe you're actually getting a bunch of eggs. But the reality is that even if you leave 9 eggs on the shore from 3 big shot spawns, those eggs aren't needed at all to win the game, especially if it's a higher hazard level. Instead, what happens is that you shoot back a couple of eggs using the cannon, but meanwhile a bunch of new salmonids spawn on the stage near you that instead of moving towards the team, will start moving towards you, and they'll keep stalling the whole wave until you finally get splatted or retreat. Now, if you keep splatting bosses near the cannon even, you're most likely not going to be able to collect all eggs anyway, and additionally your team will also possibly struggle back at the basket to keep things under control. It's basically a snowball effect where you keep trying to get those shore eggs, but they just get more and more without you actually gathering them all. So in the end, grab a few eggs depending on the situations and get out of there. I promise you, you'll be much better dealing with other bosses near the base instead. Those are my 3 main tips based on the current state of Freelance Salmon Run that I think more players need to start practicing and doing to improve their shifts and have an overall better time in Salmon Run. Frankly, even if just one of these 3 tips was more mainstream, I would say Freelance would be a much more enjoyable experience for everyone, but all we can do now is spread the word. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. It's also the first day of the year, so Happy New Year to all of you. I wish you the very best and also for our community to grow much further this year. Hope these tips help you and good luck in your future shifts, everyone.